Are you plagued by food cravings? Do you know exactly what you should be eating but struggle to stick to it? As a therapist and recovered anorexic, bulimic, and binge eater, I've been there and helped other people through it too. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about an experiment that I did and how the mistakes that I made and the insights I gained can help you to finally stop food cravings in their track. I'll also break down for you the most effective way of calming food cravings so that you can make them a thing of the past. How this started was that in 2024, I saw a video with Dr. Peter Stapleton of Bond University, and she was talking about an experiment which she had run into helping people deal with food cravings. How they'd done this was that they got participants, put them in an MRI scanner, and then flashed up pictures of foods that might cause cravings, and looked at where in their brain lit up when they did that. The people then went off and had 4 weeks of EFT tapping and then came back and did the experiment again. And you could see how much less their brains lit up the second time around when they were shown those pictures of foods that they craved. I got really excited about this experiment. I've been using tapping for a very long time for myself and with a lot of my clients. I'm an advanced tapping practitioner. And I know how effective it can be. Still, seeing the evidence right there on the screen was a really good thing to see for me as well. And that made me decide that I was going to take a challenge and tap every day for 30 days to see what a difference it could make for me. So that's exactly what I did, and I highly recommend the experience. It made a massive difference to me. At that point, I did still suffer with some food noise, and though I was recovered from both anorexia and bulimia, I did still sometimes struggle with binge eating. That experiment changed things for me at a fundamental level. So I want to dive deeper into exactly what worked, what perhaps didn't work as well, the mistakes that I made, and how those were in some ways the best things that I did, as well as breaking down for you exactly to use this process to get the most benefit from it. As I say, I saw a video with Dr. Peter Stapleton talking about this research, but for whatever reason, it was only actually after I had done this 1 month challenge for myself that I actually went back and read her paper in detail. Now, I had gotten a lot out of it, and that was really why I wanted to read the paper in detail, was to be able to draw on that research in offering this experience to other people. So then when I got to the paper, I was surprised because she had actually done something quite different to what I had done. My first mistake was that I had been tapping every single day. So I had tapped most days between, let's say, 10 and 20 minutes. Now, the participants in her study had actually only had one tapping session a week, though it had been for 2 hours. So overall, I was tapping for a little bit less time in total, perhaps. However, I was tapping daily rather than only once a week. If we turn to the results, the people in the study had a reduction of 28% in their food cravings, whereas my reduction was more like 70%. And in both studies, that reduction stayed. So they had a 6 month follow up, and I'm doing this now over a year later, and I still have that at least 70% reduction in food cravings. So that's one benefit that I found of making my tapping daily. And why I think this is important is because whenever you sleep on an experience, your brain looks at what you've done during the day and prioritizes it. And part of that is based on how long did you spend on it, how much did you enjoy it or feel that you got out of it, and how often are you doing this? If you do something once, your brain will recognize that that was interesting and maybe flag it as a new experience.
But if you don't then do it again, then it gets downgraded the following night and the night after that. Whereas if you do it again the next day and the night after that, it actually gets upgraded and boosted in your brain as this is something that we really need to pay attention to. This is something that is being done regularly. This is something that is worth keeping in mind. So, doing the tapping every single day, although it was a mistake according to how Dr. Peter Stapleton had been able to run the study, it was, as far as I see it, of great benefit in my own experiment. A second benefit of this was that a lot of the participants in Dr. Peter Stapleton's study didn't tap in between sessions and didn't keep the habit up after they had finished the study. Whereas if you develop a habit over 28 days or a month, whatever it might be, it's a lot easier to keep that going. And there are good reasons why you might want to have a habit like tapping there to support you in the long term. For one thing, tapping is proven to reduce your cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone. And there's also evidence that ghrelin, one of the main hunger hormones, rises and falls with cortisol. So if you keep your cortisol down, you will, by the very nature of it, be keeping your ghrelin down. So you will be reducing your appetite, curbing your hunger quite naturally every single day that you tap. Doesn't that sound like something that's worth doing daily? The second mistake that I made was that I tapped on cravings. So I actually focused on what foods have I been craving? For example, what foods did I eat last night that I wish I hadn't? And using that as my path into the tapping. Now, there are a couple of advantages to that, one of which is that I know what foods I ate. I know what foods I crave. I know what foods my food noise is talking about inside of my head. So it's very easy to access. Whereas the participants in Dr. Peter Stapleton's study did tapping on emotions more generally or whatever came up in the moment. Now, there is definitely a place for that, and tapping on your emotions is a fundamental and very helpful thing to do, and it's something that I highly recommend. However, oftentimes you may not be aware of exactly what emotion is going on for you. You may just find yourself thinking about food and reaching for food, and you're not even sure exactly what's driving you to it. In those circumstances, which I know is a common one for many of us, it's very hard to tap on the emotions because you're not even sure what the emotions are. However, tapping on the cravings is something that you do have easy access to, so that can make it very powerful. Another reason why this mistake is actually a good thing to do is because of the studies that have been done around ghrelin. As I said, ghrelin is a hunger hormone, and there have been a couple of very interesting studies here. One of them showed that if people thought about the food that they had already eaten during the day, it lowered their ghrelin levels. So, because they were thinking about food that they had eaten, they then were less hungry after. And so, thinking about your cravings actually makes you less likely to feel cravings later on. Equally, there was another study done where people imagined eating a food that they liked. And when they came to actually having that food, they then ate less of that food. So, once again, by focusing in on your actual cravings, you lower your ghrelin levels and you make it more likely that you will have better self control if and when you do eat any of that food. The third really important thing that I learned from my experiment was around mouthfeel. And what I mean by that is when you take a bite of a food or have that first mouthful, however you get it, whether it's on a spoon or a fork or whatever else, you experience that food. the taste of it, the flavor, the texture. You also experience how it reacts inside your mouth. If I take the example of a bite of chocolate, it might be if you have something like a truffle that there's a crisp crunch on the outside and then a slightly gooier bit on the inside, and perhaps the crunch on the outside is a pure chocolate flavor while the inside is more of a flavored thing. It could be a fruit flavor or a coffee flavor or a caramel, whatever it might be. So there are different aspects to how it feels and tastes in your mouth. For example, one bit is more of a crunch, another bit is more of a melty thing. And that's especially the case with chocolate, where it melts at body temperature. So when you first put it in your mouth, it may be firmer and then it melts very quickly with your body temperature warming it up. So, exploring this mouthfeel, which I did when I was focusing on the cravings, because I really thought about how it was to eat those foods that I had craved, helped me to then get a big perspective on it, kind of an eagle's eye perspective, looking at my cravings across the course of a month and noticing, were there commonalities in the mouthfeel between the different things that I craved in that time? And by sorting out those different commonalities, I was able to then design for myself a healthy snack that would hit those notes of the things that brought me the most pleasure in terms of mouthfeel, but without the downside of it being a super unhealthy junk food. So that I was able to come up with a healthy snack that felt really pleasurable and satisfying, that I could eat with no qualms, and that after eating it, I would actually feel satisfied rather than the continued craving that we so often find when eating a food that is more on the ultra processed food like substance range rather than a true food. So, those are the three main insights that I gained, based two of them on mistakes that I made, but which I think actually were real positives that helped me to achieve even better results. And then the third thing, which, as I say, was almost like a side effect of that, and which helped me to design something to help me make changes in a way that felt more joyful. Because I think it's really important that we do enjoy our food and enjoy our lives. That's part of what is important. Let me then break down for you how to go about tapping on cravings. And it's a little bit like I said in describing my experience with the mouthfeel, that while I was tapping, I would think about a food that I had craved, but not just think about it, oh, chocolate. Really think about, okay, so where would I get that food? What would I see when I go to get it? What would it feel like in my hand? Really bringing into play all your different senses as much as you can. You might find it easier to do this with eyes closed or with eyes open. Different people are different, so experiment with it, play with it, find what works for you. And then when you imagine what it's like to see that food, to pick it up, feel the weight of it in your hand, perhaps what it sounds like as you open any packaging, and then that first bite, and then the whole mouthfeel experience while you're eating it. Do you notice any differences between how it is at the start and how it is at the end? Are there different flavor notes, different textures? Bringing all of it very clearly into mind while you're tapping so that you get the full experience with all your senses in bright technicolor, so to speak. And as you do this, you will be lowering your cortisol, you'll be lowering your ghrelin, and you will be helping yourself to eat less if you do eat it at all. And maybe you won't. Not only are you likely to reduce how much of these foods you eat, you will also be really changing how your brain is wired. wiring it away from cravings. And you'll also be calming your body, your mind, and your emotions so that you feel less emotional and therefore less likely to reach for food in an emotional way in the first place. Perhaps also lowering your cortisol levels, you'll make a little bit more space for yourself to actually get in touch with what are the emotions that are going on for you. Because as I say, there's definitely a place for tapping on the emotions as well. And that could follow on from tapping on the cravings if you do notice that some insight arises into what are the emotions that have had you reaching for food. It's brilliant to tap on that too. Very effective in reducing how much you feel the emotions and how strongly they drive you. And you can also increase your problem solving so that you can find different ways of managing the particular issue or relationship that has been causing you those emotions. All told, I hope that you will give this tapping on cravings a go and see the difference that it can make in your eating and in your life. And if you'd like a little bit more information on the emotions that could be underlying your emotional eating, I have a series on here of videos about the emotions which most commonly underlie emotional eating. So you could watch one of those and see if any of those speak to you. And I also have a free mini course in which I look at my top 3 tips for finally silencing food noise. There are also 3 meditations included in that, 2 of which are tapping meditations, and one of which is tapping on cravings, the way that I've just described it to you now. So you could go and check that out, see if you find that helpful.